If I may have your attention, please. At this time, we're going to begin the funeral service here in our chapel for Mr. Lawrence Larry A. Abramovitz. As we begin the service, I would ask if any of you might have a cell phone or any other noise-making device, please turn them off at this time. Officiating the service here today is Rabbi Barry Schechter, Congregation Kol Emet in Skokie.
Mismole David, Adonai, mi Yaakov Yalecha, mi Yishkon behar kodshecha, holech tamim, ufoel tzedek, v'dover emet bilvavo. Lo regal leshono, lo asal re'ehu ra, v'cherei palo nasa al kiravo. Nivze beinav nimas, v'yetirei Adonai yechabed, yishpal ara, v'lo yamir, Kaspo lo natan beneshech, v'sholchad al nakil al akach. O se'ele lo yimot li'olam. God, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain, those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who give their word and come what may do not retract, who do not exploit others. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. Dear friends, we're here for a sad and difficult occasion to say goodbye, which is one of the most difficult things we can ever do, but also to pay tribute and to honor the memory, and if possible, to celebrate the life of Larry Abramovitz, the son of Bess and Meyer, Laser Ben Meyer, who's gone to his eternal rest and leaves behind a family who loved him very, very deeply. His wife, Doreen, I'm looking, oh, there you are. Yeah. You would never see the one really close to you. His wife, Doreen, married for over 30 years. His children, Marcey, Bess, and Lawson. I should mention his late brother, Jack, and also sisters through second marriage, Avis, Maddie, and the late Robin, and also his late stepmother, Norma, and nephews and niece, Victor, Eric, and Ruth, and great nieces, Jessica and Isabella, and cousin, Jack Winnick. I hope I didn't leave anyone out. Did I? Okay. Nod to tell me. Okay. And I've spoken to you. Doreen, you told me about his background, how he, although born in Chicago, he grew up in Rockford and lost his mother, Bess, when he was very, very young. He moved here to Chicago. They moved back to Chicago. He went to Mather High School. Then he went to Roosevelt University, Kent Law School. He was in the Army Reserves. And then he clerked for Judge Aspen. But it was at the Corporation Council in Chicago that he worked for over 30 years. And that's where you and he met. So the Corporation Council was the shadchan, which is the Hebrew Yiddish word for a matchmaker. If not for the Corporation Council, a number of people wouldn't be sitting here on the front bench. So thank you, Corporation Council, for arranging for this wedding. you married in 1993. And the wonderful thing is that after he retired from the Corporation Council, he volunteered to do something wonderful, to give legal services to the Center of Concern, which is in Des Plaines, which helps those who are less fortunate. And he did this as a volunteer. He helped people. You told me that he had a wicked sense of humor. I'm not sure if all the jokes he told would be repeatable here. I see you're shaking your head. You can tell me them later. You told me he had this habit of, I don't know when it started, of reading the obituaries every morning. And you asked him, you said, you're reading these? Do you want to write your own? I think you meant it as a rhetorical question. He said, yes. The very nice obit that was written, he had actually written. You also told him about his nature, that he was someone who would go along to get along. He got along with everyone. When I asked you what he enjoyed doing, the first thing you mentioned, I'm not giving away any secrets here, was eating. That's the first thing you mentioned. And when we were standing in the room just before, I think I said to you, Bess, I think he enjoyed eating. And your response was, oh God, yes. So there's no doubt about it. I always like to check these things. There's absolutely no doubt. And Bess, you told me he was a great devotee of oysters. Now, I'm not allowed to eat them, but I'm allowed to mention them. Oysters are not kosher. I hope people know. And I hope this doesn't come as a shock to some of you. Anyway, so he loved oysters. Now, you, growing up, Bess, were a devotee of mac and cheese, which you would even ask for, according to him, in Red Lobster. And he made fun of that. But you told me once you went to Red Lobster and you were hardly seated, and he said to the waitress, oysters, and she came back and said, I'm sorry, we don't have any, which is why you ate at a different place that day. What else did he enjoy? He actually liked reading. He loved to read. He also enjoyed, again, this is no secret, he enjoyed gambling. It's well known. There were boats in Elgin, there's rivers, there are all these places. I think in Las Vegas, was it more than once or many times? Yes. And by rights, I've noticed people do this. There's some people who really should be here and they're not here. Namely, the representative of various boats, people from Vegas and so on. I'm not saying he lost vast amounts of money, but he was a steady customer. And places like that should show their gratitude at a time like this. As I said, he served in the Army Reserves. And you told me that the VFW used to have a place on Higgins and Camfield. It was well equipped. It had slot machines. And he would meet there with his friends. And then it moved down the road and they continued to meet. When I say friends, I think this is an understatement because he is someone who could make friends easily and keep friends. There are friends of 40 and 50 years. I just met a gentleman before, I don't know where you are, who knows him since law school, but I'm sure there's some, oh, you're right here. I'm sure there's some as long as that or even longer. Lifelong friends. He also loved dogs. There was Rex and Sassy, am I saying that right? And they're no longer with us, but they were replaced by Lucky and Daisy. And when you came home with two dogs, he said to you, why two? And you said, so they'll have company. And then he agreed with you, and he loved those dogs. He called them his puppies. And you told me that this is a sort of refrain at night. Can we clean the kitchen and feed the dogs, right? You remember this every single night. You had some vacations that you would go on, some driving vacations. You went to Niagara, you went to Hannibal, Missouri, you went to Kentucky. And you could, you share the driving. When you would drive, I was going to say he would sleep, not when he drove. When you were driving, he would sleep, but you were unable to, you couldn't sleep. You weren't afraid of his driving. That wasn't it, was it? No. Anyway, you called each other, you had names for each other. You were Molly. You called him Gypsy because his family came from, Jewish family from Romania. One of his friends, Mike, is Mike here? Just a minute. Do I have this right? Bill and Mike, I know there was a lot of competition to make jokes, to out-joke each other. And this humor that he had, this, what some describe as sardonic humor, is something that is quite remarkable. I'll tell you why in a minute for two reasons. I'll tell you why it's remarkable. During this last period, when he wasn't well, you, Doreen, and the family, you looked after him. There was always someone there with him. Someone to be with him. In fact, once you told me he thanked you. He actually thanked you. All the time, he thanked you. And you said you don't need to thank. But that was his nature. He was so grateful and he was going to show it. On relatively recently, on July 9th, I think, Lawson, it was your birthday, right? And you went to this restaurant, you went to Nonna Sylvia. And he didn't have oysters there, did he? No. A squid. But, wow. Next best thing. Yes. He was out and with you and celebrating. He, in his time on where you live, on Catalpa, it was a wonderful time for him. He really, in an emotional and psychological sense, came into his own. The Corporation Council, I'm sure he enjoyed working there, but that kind of job is stressful. And now he was, in a sense, free to do what he loved, to do what he liked. But I want to talk about what you told me about his attitude, his emotional attitude, and how extraordinary it is. I think I mentioned this to you, Doreen, when we were talking. Normally, if someone is sick, and especially if someone is sick and there's a very good chance that they won't recover, that they won't survive, that is enough to send most of us, and it's not a criticism of most of us, to send our mood downhill. It's very frightening, it's very upsetting, it's very sad, and it's very worrying. But somehow, his positive attitude, his humor, his strength of character, if you like to call it that, was there all the time. All the time. He would make jokes about it. What makes it more extraordinary, the second thing, is this. He lost a parent when he was very young. He lost his mother. He was 10. That alone could make someone turn downward, sad, upset, bitter, whatever you like to think. In the face of both these difficult time growing up in terms of stable family. And knowing that he wasn't well and that chances were he wouldn't get better, you would expect, I would expect, I'm sure I would, go down into the dumps, as it were. And yet, that was not him. He was this repository of good feeling, of positive feeling, which is really wonderful. It's really extraordinary. It's something I'm in awe of, and I think we all should be. And what a wonderful thing it was, because I'm sure it kept you in good humor, did it not? That's been my experience. Sometimes I go and visit people in hospitals and I hope to cheer them up. And sometimes they make me feel better. And that's the situation that you were in. You had someone there and you could marvel at his attitude. I don't know how he did it, but it's a wonderful tribute to him. I was saying that in the Pirkei Avot, in something called Ethics of the Fathers, it says this: Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, which means you can't finish the task. What it really means is that our lives are finite. You know, we don't live forever. We don't live forever. So you're not obliged to, you can't really finish a task because we don't live infinitely. But it says, Ve'ein ata ben chorin lihipater mimena. But we're also not free to desist from doing the best that we can. And that was him. He did the best, and he lived life, I would say, just almost to the very, very end. Doing things, keeping you in good spirits. He said that it was the best time of his life, this last period, to be with the family, to get to know you better, actually. COVID, for most of us, it was terrible, but for him, he had all of you with him. And this was such a wonderful thing for him. So we're saying goodbye now to a very remarkable man for the reasons that I've mentioned. It's someone who kept you laughing. I've tried to do it a bit. I don't think I succeeded. But you have someone who is a model for us. We can learn from him. We can learn from his work to help people, from his ability to be with people, to have friends, and someone who has this marvelous humor. Now, I want to tell you one more story from the Talmud, which I think applies to him. In fact, it could have been written about him. We're told, Elijah, the prophet, or Eliyahu, is very important in Jewish life. He's a prophet in the Bible. And for Jewish people, he's important because when we have Passover, we have the Seder, at home, we tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt. We do this before the meal. And we drink 4 cups of wine. Not all at the same time, in succession. There's also a 5th cup that sits on the table and we don't drink it. It's called the cup of Elijah, because Elijah is supposed to come and announce that the Messiah is on his way, because as far as we're concerned, he hasn't come yet. And I always thought that if Elijah did come and he went to every Jewish house and drank up all the wine, I don't think he'd have been in any condition to do anything else, but I wasn't consulted on this. I've never met Elijah. It never arrived. We used to look and see if the wine had gone down, and it hadn't. If anyone here has met him, you better stay behind afterwards and tell me. I want to know when and where. But there was someone in the Talmud, his name was Baruch Hoza'ah, who met Elijah. And he asked him a question. He said, tell me, who deserves to go to Olam Haba? Who deserves to go to the ultimate reward, to paradise? Who has led such a good life, they deserve to do it. And Elijah gave a very surprising answer. He said, look over there in the marketplace. There are 2 men there. And people are coming up to them and they are telling them jokes. I'm absolutely serious. I couldn't make this up. They're telling them jokes. They're making them laugh. They're making them smile. They're lifting their spirits. And because of that, by the way, sometimes they're reconciling people who are alienated from each other. That happens too. If if you're feeling a bit miserable and someone tells you something funny and you laugh, and you have a few of these jokes, and with him, you wouldn't just have one, you'd have quite a number of them. You feel better, you walk lighter. You won't notice it on the bathroom scale. I mean, you just feel better. And sometimes you feel, I had this argument with someone. It really wasn't that bad. Maybe we can get back together. Anyway, so Elijah says, those two who are telling jokes to people, they deserve to go to the world to come, to Olam Haba, to paradise. Everything you've told me about him, about Larry, tells me Elijah was talking about someone such as he. We're blessed to have him. He was a lovely man, and his life was a blessing, and his memory is a blessing. Of him I say, Tehei nishmatot tzrura b'tzor hachayim, may his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. And to him I say, Larry, lech shalom, go in freedom, go in peace, habalech in Gan Eden, may your repose be in paradise. You will never be forgotten. You'll always be remembered in love by those who knew you and loved you, and those who knew you and you loved. Amen. We're going to read the 23rd Psalm. If you'll open your little booklets, it's on the left side as you open it up. Please read with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'm not sure. Are we being recorded, or is this going out to people who are not here? I don't know. Yes. Okay. Listen, if you're wearing a ribbon, could you come up to over here towards me? And we're going to cut the ribbons, which is a tradition. I'll explain it. We cut our clothing. I mean, Orthodox families actually cut their clothing, but we'll just cut a ribbon, and I'll say a blessing with you. So please come forward. Okay, let me just. Okay, so stay here. Don't run away. So I'm going to say a blessing in Hebrew. Just repeat it after. It begins the way every Hebrew blessing does. But there are two words at the end. So just listen and repeat the words. Baruch, Atah, Adonai, Eloheinu, Melech, Haolam, Dayan, Ha'emes. Blessed be the true judge. That's what we say. Please remain standing. Yeah. Could you rise, please? If it's possible, please stand, everyone. If it's difficult for you to stand, please don't. There's no need to, but if you can. El Malei Rachamim Shochem Mamromim Amet Sevenu Chanechona תחת כנפי השינה. במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזרע כמסירים, את נשמת. לייזר בן מאיר, בן מאיר שלח לעולמו, בעבור שאנחנו נצטרך בהזכרת נשמתו. בגן עדן, תהי מנוחתו, לכן בעל הרחמים, יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים. ויצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. Passionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence unto the soul of Larry Abramovitz, the son of Bess and Meyer, who has ended eternity and in whose memory we offer charity. May his repose be in paradise. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen.
Please be seated.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי, המליך מלכותי, בחייכון וימיכון, ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו, everyone, אמן. יהי שמי רבה, מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה, ואמרו together, אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו amen. And now we can have the family escort.
This concludes the memorial service here in our chapel. The family invites all of you to join them immediately on the other side of the lobby in Chapel D, where they'll be hosting a Shiva until 2 p.m. today. Also, please note, the family has asked that memorial contributions be made to Center of Concern. That information's on the inside of the funeral service folder you should have received. If you did not receive one, it is available as you depart. For those watching the service online, that information's available on the website you're currently on. In a moment, we're going to have the family escorted with the rabbi from the service. You're welcome to go out in the lobby. We will open the doors to the public to the chapel where the family will be in a few moments when they're settled. If I could ask everyone to please rise at this time as the family and rabbi are escorted.